I'll be facilitating a series of readings focused on children's books addressing sensitive topics. Children and the authors who write children's books have a way of simplifying big concepts, making them easier to digest and to understand. Whether you have a young child in your life, or whether you're simply interested in connecting with your own inner child, the language and the methods in these books can help to make complex ideas more accessible. In mindfulness meditation, we call this beginner's mind, a state of being free from preconceptions and judgments. Tonight we'll be exploring the topic of death, and I'll be reading a book called Lifetimes, a beautiful way to explain death to children, written by Bryan, Mellonie, and Robert Ingpen. There is a beginning and an ending for everything that is alive, and in between there is living. All around us, everywhere, beginnings and endings are going on all the time, with living in between. This is true for all living things, for plants, for people, for birds, for fish, for trees, and for animals, even for the tiniest little insect. Nothing that is alive goes on living forever. How long it lives depends upon what it is and what happens while it is living. Sometimes living things become ill, or they get hurt. Mostly, of course, they get better again. But there are times when they're so badly hurt or so ill that they die because they can no longer stay alive. This can happen when they're young or old or anywhere in between. It can make us sad, but this is the way of all things, and it is true for everything that is alive, for plants, for people, for birds, for fish, for trees, and for animals, even for the tiniest insect. There are lots and lots of living things in our world, and each one has its own special lifetime. Trees that are tall and strong grow very slowly, standing in the sunshine and in the rain. Some of them live for a very long time indeed, as long as 100 years or more. And that is their lifetime. Do you have a big tree somewhere near where you live? Rabbits and mice grow up in only a few weeks. Then they go on to live for a year or two, crunching up carrots, nibbling on cheese, until they grow old and tired, and it is their time to die. This is how it happens for rabbits and mice. It is the way they live, and it is their lifetime. Flowers and vegetables, planted as seeds at the beginning of spring when the earth is warm, grow quickly, and they live through the heat of the summer. The days pass, and they become old during autumn when it is cooler. And then, when winter comes and it gets cold, they die. That is the way they live, and that is their lifetime. Butterflies live as butterflies for only a few weeks. You know what they do before they become butterflies, right? And once they have dried their wings, they flutter and flit from leaf to flower. At first they're bright and quick, but as time passes, they begin to slow down. And finally, they can go no further, and they rest for a while, and then they die. And this is the way butterflies live. And that is their lifetime. Birds grow up quickly too. It is often no more than a few months from the time they hatch until they are strong enough to fly and feed themselves. How long they live after that seems to depend upon their size. Mostly, the bigger they are, the longer they will be alive. And that is the way that birds live. Some for as long as 50 years, and others no more than 2 or 3. But however long it is, that is their lifetime. Each one of them has a lifetime. Fish that swim in lakes and rivers or in the sea can be so tiny, it's hard to tell that they're there at all. Or they could be so big that the only way to describe them is that they're enormous. Again, as far as we know, it seems that the smaller they are, the shorter their lifetime will be. But that is how it is for fish. Their lives can be as little as a day or two, or as long as 80 or 90 years. It is the way they live. And each of them has a lifetime. Well, like everything else that is alive, people have lifetimes too. They live for about 60 or 70 years, sometimes even longer, doing all the things that people like to do, growing up and being a grown-up. It can happen, though, just as it does with all living things, that people become ill or they get hurt. Mostly, of course, they get better again. But there are times when they're so badly hurt or so ill that they die because they can no longer stay alive. This may be sad, but it is the way it is for people. It is the way they live, and it is their lifetime. See, somebody's helping this little boy. They think he might have a splinter, and they're helping him to get it out so he'll feel better. So no matter how long they are, or how short they are, lifetimes are really all the same. They have beginnings, and they have endings, and there is living in between. And that is how things are. For plants, for people, for birds, for fish, for animals, and even for the tiniest insects everywhere. I hope you enjoyed this book, Lifetimes. It's one of my personal favorites. I love the idea that everything has a beginning, an ending, and an in-between, which is life. And I invite you to think about that for a little bit. Nothing that lives doesn't get these things. Everything that lives has the beginning and the end and the life in between, regardless of how long or how short that life is. And for people, it is the quality of our life. It is how present we are for our life that really determines what kind of lifetime we will have.